Hello, it's time for another Mad Merlin's painting tutorial. So we're coming to the end of Finish It February and I'm way overdue doing some paint videos. So in this video I'm going to bring you two of those overdue ones. First off, we're going to look at painting Lemartes, Guardian of the Lost for the Blood Angels. And then I'll show you a quick guide on how to batch paint your Moria Goblins for the Middle-earth strategy battle game. So all these methods are going to be pretty easy and simple to follow and will get you great results to get your models onto the tabletop as quickly as possible. With that said, if you're wanting any more tutorials, please let me know, drop a comment down below, I'll see what I can do. Might be doing some future videos for Patreon exclusives, so if you want to check out, there's a link for that in the video description. So head over to that and give me a follow, and I might be doing some special tutorials over there. But for now, let's head to the desk and we'll paint our models. So here we are then with Lemartes, Guardian of the Lost, and as you can see I've got him in a couple of sub-assemblies. So I've got the main body of Lemartes here, which is pretty much fully built. I've got his base on a separate stand and on a popsicle stick or ice lolly stick. I've got his jump pack. So I sprayed everything with matte black from Colour Forge and then gave Lemartes and his jump pack a spray coat of Steel Forge Silver, as we're going to be working around all the metallics. So let's start metallics, and we're going to hit off first with Lead Belcher, and this is going to be an all over coat. So I'm going to be using a large base brush just so I can get a nice solid covering all over our model pretty quickly. So working it into all the nooks and crannies, getting a nice solid layer, just in case we need to make any touch-ups later on. We are going to go back to the Lead Belcher. So once that's dried, we're going to go over to our second metallic, which is Retributor Armor. And we're going to use this to pick out all of the gold accents across the model. So the top of Crozius, the casing on his bolt pistol, Rosarius, skulls, and any of the small blood drops scattered around the model. So most of this detail is pretty small, and so I'm going to be using a small layer brush for added control. So we got his Rosarius here. We got a blood drop in the center of his rib cage. Head of the Crozius. Including the chalice here. We've got the casing of his bolt pistol, which is just this top half here. We've got the trim and the skull on this knee pad. And we've got blood drops scattered all across our model. Pick these out with gold first, and then we can pick out the gem later on when we come to Screamer Pink. Now that the gold is all dried, as you can see, we've got some nice detail picked out on Lemartes. We're going to move to blocking in all of that black armour, and for that we're going to go straight to Contrast Black Legion, which is a nice dark black, and it covers quite well over silver. Again, we'll be using our small layer brush as we've got to try and work around all of those areas that we've already completed. So we can take this straight from the pot. I'm just getting a puddle on my palette for ease of control. And we can start applying it over the armour a section at a time. And with the ease of control, we can get in around those metal bands all over the armour. Even got to make sure we work in between all the rib cage detail. And if we do make any slip ups, we can go back to Lead Belcher and tidy up. And there we go. All the black on Lemartes is blocked in. It's looking a little too black. So to help break some of it up, we're going to use Corvus Black. And we're going to pick out the softer ribbing that's between the joints in the armour. Sticking with our small layer brush, because we've got all that fine detail to get in and reach. Get some Corvus Black ready on our palette. And then we can go in, so we got bits up on the hips here, behind the knee, as well as the joints in the elbow and under his arm. And with that stage complete, we can start blocking in some of the other colours. So first off, we're going to do all of our bone detail. We're going to use Rack Off Flesh for that. So this is his skull mask and the whole of his right shoulder pad. So we'll just block in the whole of the right shoulder pad with Rack Off Flesh. We'll probably want to do a couple of layers over the silver. And then we got his skull mask to do. Being careful around the gold gem and the silver piping. And of course the black. Any mistakes can always be touched up with the previous colours, but if we're neat, we can hopefully avoid mistakes. With our Rack Off Flesh nicely dried, our next colour is Mephiston Red. So we got a couple of details to do. His left shoulder pad, his right knee pad, his eyes, and the beads on Rosarius there need to be red. So So we'll get some of this ready on a palette. And on to Lemartes. So we got his left shoulder pad here. Be careful around the wings, which you'll need to pick out white. And of course the silver, which you want to try and avoid spills on. We've also got his right shoulder pad here, right knee pad even, which you want to get, avoiding the gold if we can. Any mistakes we can do a quick tidy up of later. And trying to pick these out individually, we got the beads. Holding his Rosarius. And the final bit to do red, we want a really thin tip to our brush. And hold our breath, and we want to pick out the lenses. Just like so. With the red details dried, we can go to Screamer Pink. This is to pick out all the gemstones, as well as the grip at the bottom of the Crozius. Making sure we've got a nice thin point on our brush. We want to pick out the raised detail on the gems. And all of our blood drops. And then we've also got the grip here at the bottom of the Crozius. There we go. With some fresh water in our pot, we're going to move on to our lighter colours. So first off, Corax White, just to pick out the skull on his belt buckle and the wings on his left shoulder pad. And then we can turn our attention to his base. So got a little skull and little skull and crossbone here on his belt buckle. And then we got the wing of the chapter symbol to pick out as well. And over the silver, you might want a couple of coats. Moving on to Lemartes' base, we're going to start off with Celestia Grey, and this is going to be for all the stonework. And we're going to use our medium base brush just to give us good coverage. We thought we want a couple of coats over the black. Just let your first dry, and then you can build up a second layer afterwards. Our last colour then before we hit our final stage is Catch and Flesh, and that's just to pick out the little bit of rubble that we can see visible through the stonework. So we've just got a little bit here, a little bit in there. So our next stage for Lemartes requires him fully assembled. So here he is, jump pack and model pushed, glued down to his base. And the final stage is an all over shade of my custom Agrax and Lamy Medium shade. So this is a 1:2 mix, so it's nicely thinned. And it'll go into all of the recessed detail that we need it to do. And it's a lovely shade that will cover all the colours we've done, giving us a lovely finish. So I'll load up a pretty large brush. I'm just using a size 3 here. And we'll apply this all over our model. There we go. We'll leave that to dry and we'll move on to our Moria Goblins. So here we are. I've got 2 goblins, one that's fully armoured and one that's got a bit of bare flesh on, so we can show you all the colours. And the good thing is we're only going to need 8 colours. So we're going to kick things off by doing our metallics. So first off, we want to get an all-over coat of Iron Warriors. Then any chainmail detail we're going to pick out with Lead Belcher. So the reason we're using Iron Warriors is that Moria Goblins are notoriously dirty and they don't really care for their equipment. So this gives a nice dark metal appearance. So it appears very unkempt and uncared for. Giving it an all over, as there's quite a bit of armour on these guys. And any other areas that aren't armour we can pick out in later stages. So now that the Iron Warriors is dry, we're going to come in with Lead Belcher and we'll pick out any chainmail detail, which just is on our goblin here with the sword and shield. That'll help differentiate the 2 materials. And help break up the model as well. So now that our metals are done, we can move on to our first of our base colours. And we're going to use Orc Flesh to give our goblins a nice greeny skin tone. Also, I've changed my water since I've been using metallics and I don't want to get any metal flakes in my matte colours. There we go. So on this goblin, we just have his ears poking out from behind his helmet. And if you can get in and do the eyes behind the visor, do so. It's not necessary. And then we got a bare hand here holding his bow. Moving on to our second goblin, we got a little bit more flesh on this guy. So we've got his face to do, as well as his ears. Don't forget his arms as well that are poking out behind his weapon and shield. And any legs we can see as well. Next up, we're going to use tusk or fur. This is going to be for all the dirty red cloth on the model. So mostly this is going to be on the tunics. So as we'll see, we got these sleeves here. Being careful around the finished metal. Alright, archer. Again, we got the tunic detail, so hanging down here from the handle underneath the armor. And his sleeves as well. Next up, we're going to want a tiny bit of Xandri dust, and this varies on the models, but it's pretty much for eyes and teeth. So on our models, we've only really got the one that's got the eyes visible. So pick this out with the Xandri dust. If you've got any that are bearing their teeth, pick these out with this colour as well. Moving on next to Corvus Black. This is going to be picking out any hair visible on our models. So we'll come back to our sword goblin here, who has a pretty big head of hair. I've got our archer a little bit poking out from underneath his helmet, and we'll also pick out the fletching on his arrows, as they don't use the best quality sort of feathers. They use any dead rooks, crows, ravens, etc. that they can find, and use them for their pitch black arrows. Onto our final colour then, before our shade, and we're going to be using Cattish Flesh. This is going to be picking out all our levers, so straps, gloves, quivers, and also our wood, so our bows, spear hafts, if you're painting any spearmen, and the arrows, of course, in the quiver. So onto our archer, we can pick out his bow. We've got straps all along his arm here. And we've got the arrows and the quiver on his backpack. There's a leather strap going across his front. And his right hand has a glove for protection from string burn. And then there's straps holding his band brace on as well. And finally, on the back of the legs, we've got straps holding the armor plates on. So pick these out with your Cattish Flesh. Moving over to our swordsman, we've just got a few straps to pick out. He's wearing sort of leathery boots as well. And he's also got a glove on his sword arm here. And a belt going around his waist. Now those details picked out, our one final stage is to apply an all-over shade of Berserker Bloodshade. Now you might think this is a strange step, but believe me, trust the process, it will work. So we'll get some on our palette and then we'll apply this to our models all over, getting the flesh, the metal, the cloth, levers and the wood. I'll let those dry and I'll bring in my finished Lemartes and I'll show you the finished results. And there we have it. one finished Lemartes, Guardian of the Lost, up to a pretty good battle ready standard, and a duo of speed painted Moria Goblins. And as you can see, that Berserker Bloodshade really does work wonders. Adds a bit of life to the skin, brings out a sort of rusty effect to the weapons and armor, and even shades the cloth and levers quite nicely. So there you go. I hope you found these tutorials useful, and I hope you're getting on with your Finish It February. I'll be back for more painting tutorials in the near future, but until then, thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.